Dealing with toxic people can be extremely challenging. We often don't know what kind of behaviors we should try, what mechanisms are going to really work, how to break through their difficulty with seeing our position. What if we're looking at it in the wrong direction? Hi. I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy, and today we're going to talk about toxic relationships and looking at it from a standpoint of emotional immaturity versus just toxicity. So what if we've been looking in the wrong direction? I mean, it's common for us to think about these people from the behaviors that they do, the deception, the lying, the cheating, the exploitation, gaslighting. But what if we begin to look at it in a different perspective? Instead of seeing these as people who are just mean, lacking empathy, who have poor judgment, what if we begin to think of them in terms of emotional maturity? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when you're born in a very raw form, and there's not a lot of context for you to be able to know how to be emotionally mature, how to resist your urges, how to delay gratification. You just want what you want when you want it, and you tend to see things in a very black and white terms. And then as we mature towards adulthood, we go through various stages in which we view each other, view life, view ourselves in different ways, and differently, in fact. And we begin to learn these cognitive, emotional, and interpersonal skills that make us easier to deal with. But does everyone become emotionally mature? We tend to think the answer is yes, just because by chronological age we think that they're 30 or they're 45 or 22, that they should behave like a 22, 45, or a 30-year-old would behave. But is that actually true? Do all of us actually age emotionally along with our physical body? No, actually we don't. Psychology has known this for a long time. We tend to view people, at least some segments of the population of psychotherapists view people from a developmental standpoint. That's a fancy way we think of people in terms of how far and how well developed they are. Not everybody becomes a fully functioning person. In fact, Freud said that's very rare. Most of us don't ever get past a lot of neuroses, is how he referred to it. So would it be more helpful if we begin to think of people in this term instead of in the perspective of their age and their responsibility and the degree they should be accountable? So let's back up what it would look like at each of these ages. One of the things you might want to do is to write down on a piece of paper various stages like toddlers, preschoolers, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, adulthood. And then next to it, put terms like ability to handle emotions, ability to have insight into themselves, the degree they have empathy for others. Do they show impulse control? Are they able to reason out their decisions and show good judgment? And think of other characteristics that kind of go along with these various ways in which we grow psychologically. And then under each of these ages, put the characteristics of each of those qualities. For example, a toddler does not show good judgment. Not going to have insight into their behavior. They're not going to delay gratification. They're going to be highly impulsive, and they're going to be very emotional. Next to, for example, if we looked at young adults, we would say this person shows, a healthy young adult shows good judgment, has insight into their behavior, self-reflective. They tend to be empathetic towards other people. They're loyal. They're able to control their emotions and even put words to their emotions. And they're sensitive to the needs of others and delay gratification. Now, so each age will have kind of different looking presentation of that, varying from very low functioning, meaning infancy, all the way to adulthood. Now begin to think of the most toxic people in your life and use these same qualifications like impulse control, ability to handle emotions, thinking in flexible terms, showing good judgment, delaying gratification, and think how well does that person do on those same criteria, and write down the descriptors. and then begin to look at each of these stages of development and ask which is it more similar to. I have a feeling the people that you're having the most difficulty with in your life, you're going to find tend to be towards the low end. They're going to be tends to the very young ages, not up to the more mature ages. So in other words, they're emotionally immature. Once you know that, then that gives you a whole wealth of information, as well as a lot of tools. So now you know how to begin to deal with this person. For example, if you're in the grocery store and you're trying to check out and you have a toddler who's melting down because it's hungry and nap time, do you stop in that moment and try to reason with the toddler? No, chances are you just push through it, wait till you get to the car, maybe give them a snack in the car, and then deal with their needs when you get home. But you don't stop and try to reason with them. You don't share your perspective. You don't ask them to be empathetic towards you. You don't expect them to have any insight into their behavior, and you certainly don't expect them to pull it together. If you're dealing with a toxic person who's at a similar emotional age, they're going to have the same deficits and difficulties as the person, as a child in that age. So is it any surprise then when we ask people who are very emotionally immature, who are not dealing with a whole lot of cognitive strength, emotional strength, that they have difficulty with being reasonable? That they don't delay gratification, that they are highly impulsive, and that they are just wanting their needs met whenever they want their needs met? Are we surprised if they're handling things as a toddler or a preschooler, that then they don't have any more skills to be able to do any better than a toddler or a preschooler? Suddenly that then makes much more sense. We would stop then trying to explain things. We would stop asking them to be self-reflective, and we would expect emotional outbursts, because these are things that are typical for someone of that age. So now you have a whole new way of looking at somebody, not in terms of a grown adult who should know better and is doing these things, but rather as an adult who happens to be at an emotional maturity level of a much younger person. And then we would stop expecting adult behavior out of these individuals. I know that when I began to think about it from this term, it just opened up my eyes in a new way. It unstuck me, because I tended to try to reason people out of things. I wanted them to see things from my perspective, and then I would become so frustrated when they wouldn't. But seeing people in these terms, categorizing them this way, then empowers me and enables with me to deal with them in a very profoundly different way. And suddenly now I know that if I see someone who's immature, I expect immature behavior. I will guard myself appropriately. So I'll take different measures on how much vulnerability I show, how much loyalty I'm going to give them, how much I trust them. And then it also gives me strategies of what I'm going to do when those difficult moments happen. I'm more likely to try to explain my perspective. I'm less likely to expect them to show up and care about what's happening on my side of the issue. So I would be curious to hear what you think of this. How does this change your view of people? Does this give you new ways of handling things? And then here's another more important question. When you begin to assess your social environment, the people who populate your support system, what emotional age are they at? Are you surrounded by pretty immature people? And then wonder why you're chronically feeling alone, isolated, and not understood? And what age, here's another really difficult question. What age do you think you're operating at? How well do you control your emotions? Do you delay gratification? Are you aversive to risk? Do you show good judgment? Are you empathic to other people? How loyal are you? And then what could you begin to do to grow on some of these attributes so that you become stronger in these areas? So I'd love to hear what you think. I know this is a big shift. It's a shift of seeing people, but I would love to know what your take on it, how it changes things for you. So be sure to drop a comment and give me some feedback on what you think. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss future videos on this channel. And thank you so much for joining me as we here discuss all things related to healthy relationships.